In case you needed reminding, Roy Williams led us all through a golden era of Carolina basketball, and it's one that not even Coach K could touch.
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, July 25th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I want to thank you for making us your first listener watch to get your weekend going the right way. And yes, baby, the Friday is the weekend. The Friday, you know what I mean. This episode's brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Check it out. I want to welcome in all the everydayers who are here with us, all the great members of the Locked On College, I almost said college basketball. That's our other show, the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. Man, we're having some hilarious conversations in there, literally as I speak. And all the great members of the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, man. Welcome into all of you. Here's what's coming up on the show today. We're going to start with an article that has been circulating. The Athletic this summer has been doing multiple top 25 lists, and one of the recent ones is the top 25 coaches of the 2000s. Where does Roy Williams fall on that list? Let me just say that you're going to be very happy with his spot, although in some ways it's the 2022 Final Four all over again. Secondly, we talked yesterday on the show about the news from inside Carolina that the Tar Heels might actually be looking at an SEC move. And now I want to look at some of the ramifications of that. What might it mean in terms of different sports? And how an April Fool's Day joke is tripping up some people with it. I'll explain. And then finally, Thursday was an absolute media circus with Carolina at ACC kickoff. And boy, Bill Belichick was, I don't know, like a movie star, man. People were everywhere. It's crazy. We'll talk about it. We'll unpack it to wrap the show. Okay, let's start with this Athletic article. I don't know if you're an Athletic subscriber. If you're not, one of the things they've been doing is they've had all these different top 25 lists, top 25 teams of the 2000s, for example. Well, one that's being circulated right now that was written a couple of weeks ago came from CJ Moore, who ranked the top 25 men's basketball coaches of the first quarter century of 2000. And so, for example, it started with the 2000-2001 season. So Michigan State's championship in 2000 for the 99-2000 season doesn't count for Tom Izzo in this collecting. So there were 6 categories that he considered when looking at this ranking: national championships, national titles, Final Fours, regular season conference titles, conference tournament titles, NCAA tournament appearances, and total wins. And he also said, plus, quote, a dash of subjectivity, because you got to have that, right? There needs to be nuance with this kind of stuff. And I'll tell you right now, this list is a who's who of coaches. One of the things you got to remind yourself when you go look at it is that it is only the 2000s. It's not all time, so you're not going to see Dean Smith. Anything Roy Williams did before 2000 doesn't count. Anything Mike Krzyzewski, for example, did before 2000 doesn't count. So Duke's 91 and 92 championships are not on this list, nor I guess would be 99. So just keep all of that in mind. I'll just starting at 25. I'm not going to really talk about many of these coaches. I'll make a few observations, but I want to get down to the top 3 because that's what we really care about. But let me burn through it because it's interesting in case you hadn't seen it. 25, Bob Huggins. 24, Sean Miller, who just left Xavier for the second time. He's going to Texas this year in case you hadn't seen that. 23, Gary Williams. That was at Maryland for so long. 22, Rick Barnes. Feels like he should maybe be higher, but I think it's because neither at Texas, he's got that one Final Four, or now at Tennessee, he hasn't gotten a Final Four and no national championships. Feels like he's had more success than that, but he just hasn't. 21, Dana Altman at Oregon. 20, Bruce Pearl. You wonder if he would be higher on this list if he hadn't been out for a while. 19, Bo Ryan from Wisconsin. 18, Scott Drew at Baylor. 17, John Beilein. You know him from Michigan. 16, Matt Painter. I think had Purdue been able to knock off UConn 2 seasons ago in the national championship game, he'd probably be higher. I also think he's somebody that has a chance to continue getting higher. I guess the same is true for Scott Drew at 18, but it feels like really Purdue is and has been in good shape. They're going to be really good again this year. Wouldn't be surprised if Matt Painter moves up. 15, Jim Boeheim. Number 14, this one might be a surprise to a lot of you, but remember, this is the entirety of the first 25 seasons of the 2000s. And I say that because number 14 is Dan Hurley, another prime candidate to move higher on this list. But outside of those 2 national championships in 23 and 24, he hadn't done as much. I mean, he'd been successful, but not that level. So that's why he's as relatively low as he is. But again, I think he will ultimately move up. Just above him at number 13, this is funny, is Jim Calhoun. How interesting that those 2 UConn guys are right next to each other. 12, Tony Bennett. 11, Brad Stevens, despite his very short-lived run. 10, Kelvin Sampson. He's another candidate to move up. Obviously, had they held on last year against Florida, I think he would already be higher, but similar to Purdue, they're going to be very good again this year. Number 9, Tom Izzo. Remember, 0 national championships for this conversation. Number 8, John Calipari. Again, had, like that undefeated Kentucky team in 15, beat Wisconsin and then Duke. I think he'd be higher on this list because he'd have multiple national championships. Number 7, Mark Few at Gonzaga. Number 6, Billy Donovan. Number 5, Rick Pitino. Number 4, Jay Wright. And then we get to the top 3, and you can probably guess who it is because we haven't named them yet. It's in some order. I'm going to give them to you alphabetical by last name in case you haven't seen this list yet. Is Mike Krzyzewski, Bill Self, Roy Williams. I kind of alluded to it. It's very 2022 Final Four, and that's because Coach K is 3rd on the list. Roy Williams, who I know didn't beat Duke in the 2022 Final Four, is 2nd, and then Bill Self is 1st on the list. So in those 6 categories that he had looked at, Coach K, here's his accolades: 3 national championships, 5 Final Fours, 5 ACC regular season titles, 10 ACC tournament titles, and 20 NCAA tournament appearances, 631 wins, which averages out to 28.7 a season. Roy, who is 2nd on the list, ahead of Coach K. Yes, indeed, on this list, which is clearly the right call. I know that many consider Coach K the greatest of all time, but Roy Williams has him beat in this century. I think that's clear and indefensible, and I think CJ got this right. Roy, similar to Coach K, has 3 titles in the 2000s, 7 Final Fours, 11 regular season championships, more than doubling Coach K, 3 conference tournament championships. That is less than half of Coach K. 19 NCAA tournament appearances, so 1 fewer, 574 wins, so that's about 60 fewer, averages out to 27.3 a season. And then number 1, Bill Self. 2 titles, so 1 fewer than both K and Roy. 4 Final Fours, so fewer there. But I think it's this consistency and longevity where CJ decided to put Bill ahead of those guys. 18 regular season titles. That means out of 25, Kansas won 18. I mean, that's absurd. Think about it. Roy had 11 to Coach K's 5, and Bill Self has 7 more than Roy. I mean, it's asinine. 11 conference tournament titles. That's more than K or Roy. 24 NCAA tournament appearances. That means they just missed once in that stretch, and 702 wins, which is 70 more than Coach K, 28.1 per season. So all of that to say, Bill Self is number 1. And while he has fewer titles and Final Fours, he kind of blows both guys out of the waters in the other categories. So I can very much live with that, especially because Roy is placed above Coach K. A couple things to look at. There were only 7 coaches with multiple titles in the 2000s. That would be Danny Hurley, Jim Calhoun, Billy Donovan, Jay Wright, Coach K, Roy, and Bill Self. But only 2 of those 7, Coach K and Roy Williams, had 3. So it's interesting, between those 7 coaches, they had, let me think if my math is right here, 5 times 2 is 10, 16 of the 25 NCAA championships of the 2000s. That's pretty crazy. But I say all this, I'm not here to debate where Roy should be, although I love it. And again, I think it's right. what my takeaway from this is for us to just look back, because sometimes it's hard to realize just how good you've got something when you're in the midst of it. And when I look back on the Roy Williams era, I mean, I think what's neat is we can look at multiple golden ages or golden eras of Carolina basketball. I guess maybe by definition, if you're talking about a golden era, there can only be one. But it's almost like the same thing when somebody talks about like, hey, that's my best friend, but they have like 5 of them, which by definition can't happen. But you're right. Like, it kind of makes sense there. I know the final 2 years of Coach Williams' tenure were kind of and so hopefully there's enough space now that doesn't leave a sour taste in the mouth. Obviously, there was the year that ended with COVID where Carolina wouldn't have made the tournament. And then his final season where Carolina was bounced by Wisconsin in the first round, literally the only time in his career when Coach lost in the first round. But man, everything prior to that, his first season, 03-04, all the way up to the 18-19 season. I mean, a decade and a half of just brilliance. This man, yes, he had a ton of talent, but his ability to bring it together and make it work and find the guys that he needed, I mean, it was nothing short of incredible. And so, man, I say all this to say, I hope you can take an opportunity to think back, look back, and remind yourself of just how crazy good and that crazy consistent Carolina was in the Roy Williams era. Man, like if you're somebody that's a little bit younger that's here with us, what's up? So glad you're here. And you didn't get to live or remember the entire Roy Williams era. Talk to somebody that lived through it and experienced all of it, because man, it was something very, very special. And yes, he had 3 championships, but easily could have had more. I mean, Carolina could have won in 16. They could have won in 08 and 07. They could have won in 12. There are multiple other championships or Final Fours that Carolina could have gotten to that they just weren't able to. And so will we see this again, this level? I just don't know in this era of collegiate athletics if it's going to ever be consistent enough to do that. I mean, maybe once we get to collective bargaining where you're signing multi-year contracts, well, I don't know how far off that is. And so I thought it'd be like seeing that article, reading it. I was like, man, what a cool opportunity to reflect on how good we have it, man. If you got stories or memories from that, I'd love for you to share them of your own experiences. By the way, speaking of Bill Self, let me just quickly say, if you didn't see this news on Thursday night, man, and you're a person that prays, please stop and offer up a prayer for Coach Self. He had to go to the hospital on Thursday. The quote from KU, quote, Kansas men's basketball coach Bill Self felt unwell and experienced some concerning symptoms Thursday. He was transported to Lawrence Memorial Hospital where he had 2 stents inserted. The procedure went very well and he is expected to make a full recovery. He's in good spirits and expects to be released from the hospital soon, end quote. But that didn't mean anything about him quickly returning to basketball or anything like that. So you might also recall 2 seasons ago, 2023, he had to miss the entire postseason, Big 12 and NCAA tournaments. And so, man, that's scary stuff. Twice in a span of less than 3 years, hard stuff. And so, I don't want to speculate on things, but I mean, the man has done and accomplished so much and has made enough to provide for the rest of his life. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he walked away and said, like, it ain't worth it. I want to spend this time with my family. So anyway, thoughts and prayers go up to Coach Self and the Kansas Jayhawks community. And obviously Carolina plays Kansas, second game of the season. So we'll see what happens there. Roy Williams, golden era, man, special stuff. Yesterday, we talked about Carolina potentially moving to the SEC at some point. I don't think it's imminent and obviously can't be for next season because that's already passed. And by that, I mean the 26-27 season. But if Carolina did ultimately move to the SEC, what might they be giving up? Or are there alternatives where Carolina might not have to lose some of those programs? Hashtag Project 28, baby. We'll talk about it in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following already anyway, so why not make it even more thrilling? With FanDuel, Get in on the game while all your friends are off at the beach getting sunburned. And you can use FanDuel to track your favorite matchups. Plus, the app keeps it fresh every day with new promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, it's fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. So whether you're placing a same-game parlay or letting a bet ride right on into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it always feel like you're part of the action. Carolina, we got the line out for Carolina TCU Labor Day to start the season. I don't know about this. TCU favored by 3.5. Let's go make FanDuel seem foolish for that. They won it. So new to FanDuel, great. New customers can bet $5, and if that wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, more on the SEC possibility and the Tar Heels at some point in the future going to that conference. And I'll tell you what, boy, did it pick up traction on Thursday. Adam Jones from Inside Carolina, Adam Jones is a buddy of mine where I live. Adam Smith from Inside Carolina had written about it, talked about it, and then just it proliferated everywhere on Thursday. It was crazy. But, you know, if you're a regular here on the show, you know this. If you're new, we always talk about hashtag Project 28. We want to support all 28 of Carolina's varsity athletic sports. This started, I just started talking about it because of rev share and the potential that other sports might have to get cut in the House settlement era. And so just really want to continue to support and elevate all of Carolina's athletics. And so I say that to say, one of the reasons I have been out on Carolina to the SEC for a long time is that the SEC doesn't have all 28 of those athletic entities. In fact, as things stand right now, Carolina has 13 men's sports and 15 women's sports. I'll rattle them off real quick in case you don't know what they are on the men's side. Baseball, basketball, cross country, fencing, football, golf, lacrosse, soccer, swimming and diving, tennis, indoor track, outdoor track, NCAA counts those as two different sports, and wrestling. On the women's side, 15. Basketball, cross country, fencing, field hockey, golf, gymnastics, lacrosse, rowing, soccer, softball, swimming and diving, tennis, indoor track, outdoor track, and volleyball. And so out of those 28 sports, the SEC doesn't support 7 of them. And that's not a massive number, it seems like, when I say 7, but that's literally a quarter of Carolina's 28 varsity teams. 25% is a lot. So those 7 sports on the men's side, it's 4 of them: fencing, lacrosse, soccer, which that feels very weird to me, and wrestling. Obviously, wrestling, I think people typically see it as more of a like Big 10 or Big 12 thing, but the ACC has it. Weird that the SEC doesn't. On the women's side, it would be 3 sports: fencing and lacrosse, just like on the men's side, and then also field hockey. And so when you look at those, it's like, man, that's a lot of really strong Carolina programs. Lacrosse, women's lacrosse just literally went undefeated at winning the national championship, a perennial power. Field hockey, I know they lost late last year, but good grief, they're always so good. Men's lacrosse was back to kind of prominence this year. Wrestling's on the come up, all of this stuff. And so I don't want to see any of these fall to the wayside. And I know they're not the revenue generators. And I know that that's not what it's about in this era of money, money, money. But again, here at Locked On Tar Heels, we always want to support all of Carolina athletics. Sure, basketball is what we're going to talk about more than anything, men's basketball in particular, because that's what everyone's here for, right? That's why I start every show talking about men's basketball. But then we're also going to talk chiefly beyond that about football, and then baseball and women's basketball, and then just others, the rest of them as well, because I just think it's important. And I do this because I want to share the stories of the young men and women that play these games that you and I love to watch and cheer for. And I just think it's neat to be able to share all of that. Sure, we can't shine a light on all of them as much as I would like to be able to. I hope at some point in the future to maybe be able to do even more of that, maybe record a couple shows a day and talk more about it. I don't know. But this is where we're at right now. So all of that is why I'm like, dude, I haven't wanted to go to the SEC because that would mean Carolina, unless the SEC starts adding some of these, cutting literally a quarter, a full 25% of their athletics varsity programs. However, I started looking into what sports the SEC does and doesn't have. And interestingly enough, in some of those 7 programs, some SEC schools have those teams, but they compete in other conferences. Here are the examples. There are no fencing programs. There are no men's lacrosse programs. That felt weird to me, but there are 2 men's soccer programs, Kentucky and South Carolina. They both compete in the Sun Belt. On wrestling, there are 2 teams, interestingly, both former Big 12 teams, Mizzou and Oklahoma, and they both compete in wrestling still in the Big 12. And then on the women's side, there are no fencing programs, no field hockey programs. That's wild. But then lacrosse has 2 different, women's lacrosse has 2 different programs. Florida, you already know that Florida has a program because Carolina played them in the Final Four. They compete in the Big 12, and then Vandy competes in the American. And so all of that gives me hope that there is, if Carolina did go to the SEC, there is hope to be able to keep all 7 of those programs, and just maybe they're in different conferences. Heck, like I just said it, Oklahoma just came over from the Big 12, and their wrestling program is still in the Big 12. And I don't know this. This is me just spitballing. But could Carolina keep all or at least some of these programs in the ACC? And if not, if the ACC, if it's like, you left us, no, you can't keep any of your programs here, fine. Let's find other conferences for all 7 of these programs to keep them at the varsity level. I know you could bump it down to club, like Carolina's ice hockey team or ultimate Frisbee team, which is so dominant. But it's like, let's keep all 28 of them at that high level. It's also funny. I was talking about this on Twitter, just laid all this out that we've just talked about. And a guy posted a picture of like, hey, the SEC is getting lacrosse starting in 2026. And it's literally an April Fool's Day post. Like if you read it, it lists the schools and when they're starting lacrosse. And literally on the Alabama line, it says April Fool's. So I was like, no, that's not a thing. But, maybe in this era, things will, and I know lacrosse is getting more and more popular. So we'll see what happens. But that has always been a big hesitation for me in joining the SEC. But if putting those programs in other conferences or keeping them in the ACC while everyone else moves to the SEC is a thing, why not? And here's another thing. Let's be honest about this possibility too. In this day and age, think about it let's compare it to TV watching. When cable was a thing, all of your channels were in that one cable package. In this day and age, it's all a la carte and you have all your streaming platforms. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we get to an era of collegiate athletics where all the different sports have their own hierarchy, governing bodies, whatever you want to call it, and it's all jumbled anyway. Maybe we're headed there. I don't know. But I don't want to give up on this. Hashtag Project 28. Are you with me? Let's get it. All right. Thursday was Carolina's turn at ACC kickoff. And boy, is the media circus for Carolina and Bill Belichick going to be something to behold this season. We'll talk about it to wrap the show and this week in just a second. Thursday was Carolina's turn at ACC kickoff. In attendance, repping the Tar Heels was Coach Belichick and 4 players, quarterback Gio Lopez, Thad Dixon, Will Hardy, and receiver Jordan Shipp. A great little quartet there. But with all due respect to the players, this day, as will be many days this season, was all about Bill Belichick. And I love it because it takes all the pressure off the players for the season as they're just trying to get it figured out. Who are we going to be in this new era? Because all the attention is going to be on Bill Belichick. And if the players can avoid getting swept up in all of that media circus, it could help make for a really good year. So look, the Belichick effect is crazy. I think we talked about it some yesterday, but I feel like we're going to end up talking about it a lot this year because it is insane. I thought it was nuts when Coach Brown came back and all the fanfare that came along with that. This blows that out of the water. And you saw it just even on social media on Thursday. Front Office Sports tweeted, quote, ESPN networks are poised to show 8, if not 10, of Bill Belichick's first games as North Carolina head coach, sources tell Front Office Sports. Can ESPN recreate the, quote, Dion effect, meaning prime at Colorado? Quote, we have to wait and see. The potential is there, end quote. I mean, it's crazy. I've wondered about that a lot. Is remember, what is it, 3 years ago now, 2 years ago, when Dion first got to Colorado and all the hoopla and all the craziness. And look, Colorado wasn't great that first season. But man, the circus never left town despite all that. Actually, now that I think about it, didn't they play TCU? Wasn't that one of the, I'm not going to bother wasting time looking that up, but I feel like maybe one of their first games of the prime era was against TCU. I'll have to go back and look that up later, or you can look it up and yell at me through your phone or whatever you're watching this on or listening to it on. But you know how I know Carolina is going to find success, even where, like, because Dion's great and he's who he is, but he's not Bill Belichick, who's got all of this crazy experience. But you know how I know Carolina is going to be successful? Because despite all that media circus, Bill Belichick was not fazed in the least. He took every bit of it in stride, cool, calm, and collected, and was Bill Belichick. Why? Because he's seen this all and he's done it all before, and a conglomerate, a big blob of media following him around like puppy dogs. And that, I say that as though it's a crazy thing. That would have been me too if I was there. I wasn't there this year. He's seen it and done it all. And it's just a reminder that things are going to be okay. At what level are they going to be okay? I don't know, especially this year in year one, as you're just trying to get all the pieces together. But I'm so sick and tired of the narrative that Carolina won't win because Bill Belichick's never coached college. So what? It's so professionalized now. It's so much more similar. I can't count the number of times I've said this offseason. So similar to what he would do as an NFL head coach. And that's what he and Mike Lombardi are trying to do anyway. How often have they said the mantra that they want to make Carolina the 33rd NFL franchise? Thursday was a reminder that I feel great about this. And I also, in listening to Coach Belichick's answers and how he talks about stuff, classic Belichick, vintage Belichick. He answers everything. I felt like he was a bit more long-winded than I remember from his Patriots days, from the Pats era. But similar to that is he gave away absolutely nothing. People prompt and pry and poke, and he's not going to give you anything, right? Like, hey, what are you excited about going into camp? What are you thinking in a couple of years? All of this stuff. He's not going to give you an ounce of more than he absolutely has to. Why? Because Bill Belichick knows that any morsel you give him is that he gives you is something that you as an opponent can use against him. It's similar to, like, my wife and I, we never want anything in shows or movies to be ruined for us. And somebody will say, like, oh, let me just tell you this one thing. It's not going to ruin anything. But literally anything you say or any face you make or any action you do is going to give something away. So I'd rather you just say nothing. It's the exact same thing. Belichick knows that facial expressions or anything he says can be used against him in a court of law and will be. So he's not going to give it to you. More on the Belichick media circus. ESPN announced that College Football Countdown Live is going to be live from Chapel Hill before that game on Labor Day on ESPN from 7 to 8 Eastern ahead of that game. I mean, this is crazy. There was a picture from David Hale, just how big the media throng was for Bill Belichick's main presser, right? He had a smaller presser with local Triangle media earlier in the day, but his big presser. And it's crazy. David Hale's picture showed everyone for Carolina and how packed the room was. And then a picture beside it of NC State, who was up after Carolina. And those were the last two teams of the day. And it was just a wildly empty room for Dave Doran and the NC State players. And I don't want to make this a Carolina versus NC State thing, because I think a lot of people look at that picture and interpret it that way as like, oh, Carolina had all the people and NC State had none. No. What that post was about was not Carolina. It was Bill Belichick versus anyone else. And it just so happened to be NC State. And so that's how people interpret that. But it's not about that rivalry. It's Bill Belichick and anybody that would have been before or after him. It's just a wildly different thing. But again, he can handle every ounce of it. And I absolutely love that. One of the most interesting things, and I said because of the Belichick of it all, I feel great. But one of the reasons, as a reminder of pause, is I think one of the biggest takeaways for me from the day was Coach Belichick's reminder of how new and fresh all the players are. He said, and I can't remember if this is like a round number or the exact number, but he said, we've got 70 new players, 40 transfers, and 30 freshmen. And we're trying to make all that happen and everyone come together. Now, the plus side of that, and he talked about this, is it's basically like you've got clay to be able to form, formless clay to be able to form without a bunch of bad habits already established. And that is good news, because then you're able to coach them up, help bring them along. And it's guys who, let's be honest, want to play for Bill Belichick. So they're going to listen. And so that's good news. But the potential downfall of that is 70 new players, right? Like, enough said. So there you go. But anyway, it was a wacky scene. Every sight you saw from Thursday of just people following him around every step he took, like just while he's walking, not even while he's talking. It was insane. But buckle up, because this is just the beginning, and it's going to be like this all year long. Even more so if Carolina's winning, but for other reasons if they're not, because everyone's going to want to like point fingers and I told you so and all of that. So anyway, that's today's show. That's this week's show. Great to be together. Lots of interesting stuff going on as we inch closer and closer to fall camp. Going to be really great. Tomorrow, Saturday, I am doing an interview with incoming linebacker Kamori House. It's going to be great. I haven't decided what day, but I'll drop it next week. So stay tuned for that. Going to be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for being here with us. Make sure you're subscribed to the show on audio and video platforms, wherever you get podcasts, so you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. Man, love having everybody here with us. Also, if you're not in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, man, it's time to do it now, because we're ramping up and getting ready for the season. If you want to be a Locked On Tar Heels insider and you're not, and you're missing out, you could get one-on-one communication with me, access to all of my files and record books and all of that great stuff and other perks as well. You guys, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again on Monday, but until then, peace.